This episode of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl podcast is driven by Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy. CGA is the world's most comprehensive online gun dog training resource. They've got over 160 instructional videos, including everything that you need to take your 7-week-old puppy to a finished gun dog. Visit cornerstonegundogacademy.com to sign up for the free preview module and begin your training journey today. Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy, the most advanced gun dog training resource on the web. You are listening to the HP Outdoors Waterfowl podcast, episode 140. This week on the show, we're joined by Delta Waterfowl Managing Editor Kyle Wintersteen. We talk with Kyle about duck hunting, duck dogs, hunting Pennsylvania, and hunting my hometown, DC. All right, welcome to episode 140 of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl podcast, where your on-demand audio source for all things waterfowl and waterfowl hunting. Check us out at hpoutdoors.com. You can find us across all the podcasting directories and platforms out there, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, all the good ones. You can find our show. You can also find us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Got a Facebook group if you're interested. Head over there, check it out. Joining me this week, as he always does, my co-host Dan Hrushka. Dan, what's up?
Dude, I'm not going to lie. When you did that intro, I just pictured you wearing like an Ovechkin jersey and like standing and cheering for the Capitals.
No, that's never happened. Never will happen. I mean, I say hometown just because that's like physically where I live right now. But it won't be long, and I will have lived here as long as I have lived in Pennsylvania. So at some point, it's a toss-up. But I mean, that's where I lay my head down these days. So unfortunately, I call it home. But anyway, this week's episode brought to you by Dunn's Sporting Goods. Dunn's family-owned and operated business. They got 2 locations, Peabody, Missouri, and Marion, Illinois. They've got over 60 years dedicated to providing the outdoorsman with the best deals on hunting and fishing gear. Check out their selection at shopduns.com, as well as you can check them out on Facebook, Instagram, at ShopDuns for weekly specials and giveaways. So they've also got a 10% discount with the HP Outdoors code HPO. Some restrictions do apply. Also, thank you to this week's sponsors, Gunner Kennels, engineered for your dog, designed for travel, and built for your peace of mind. The G1 series of kennels set a new industry standard and put Gunner in a category all its own. They were started to protect your pet, and it continues to be at the center of everything they do. They're dedicated to building the best and safest pet travel crate on the market because man's best friend deserves man's best kennel. Check out their G1 series of kennels and accessories at gunnerkennels.com. Also, thank you to Eukanubo, where out in the field, how you've prepared determines how you'll perform. With balanced fat and protein to support peak condition, Eukanubo Premium Performance Dog Food enhances strength, energy, and endurance. So when the pavement ends and the truck doors swing open, you and your dogs are ready for anything. Strong, focused, ready for anything. That's a Eukanubo dog. Thank you to this week's sponsors of the show. Always encourage you to support the companies that support us, that make the show possible. All right, Dan, this week we've got Kyle Wintersteen from Delta Waterfowl joining us. And, it's always fun to get guys that sort of work in the waterfowl space full time to talk a little bit about their experiences and kind of what they get to do. Because I think a lot of us can kind of, I don't know if dream's the right word, but sort of dream to be able to do something that you love and that you're passionate about for your full-time job. And Kyle has made that a reality for him, where he's a freelance writer, loves to write, got an opportunity to come on with Delta full-time. So now he gets to write, talk about dogs, live where he wants to live. Really great setup. Super cool to get him on the show. We've talked about having him on for a really long time. So I was excited when he said he would be able to do it this week, and I think we had a really good conversation with him.
Yeah, man, and like you said, you guys were in college at the same time. That state college area is so beautiful, and to duck hunt down there would be fun. And I worked in that area for a few months, and it always seems, they call it Happy Valley, and it always seems like the sun's shining. If it rains or snows, it's not for very long. And I'm just sitting here. I think it feels like 3 months straight of rain. We haven't hit summer yet, but I'm excited. This weekend is supposed to be sunny, so we're going camping for the weekend. But definitely a good conversation. And like you said, it is a dream of a lot of people. And, if people are aspiring to be writers in the outdoor space, he is a good person to talk to. And like he says in the show, send some product over and see if you got what it takes.
Yeah. Well, cool. Let's go ahead and jump into that, and we can circle up after the conversation. So without further ado, we'll welcome Kyle Wintersteen to the program. All right, Dan, joining us this week is a guy who, we've been actually talking about having him on the show for quite a while because, his background and his experience threads pretty closely into some of the things that we've done in our lives and some of the places we hunted. So this week we are excited to welcome the managing editor for Delta Waterfowl, Kyle Wintersteen. Kyle, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's great to be here.
Yeah, man, we appreciate you coming on. We talked a little bit before we got on the show, so I may end up repeating some of that for you. But as we were preparing for this episode, I realized that our lives are very, very much in parallel in a lot of ways. So we'll get into that a little bit, which was surprising to me. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about you and your background, and a little bit about your path to Delta Waterfowl, and what does it mean to be the managing editor for Delta Waterfowl?
Sure. I've been an outdoor writer for 15 years now. I got my start in 2004 at the NRA's American Hunter, straight out of school at Penn State. They took a chance on a young kid, and I'm sure glad they did, because it's just been outdoor writing's been a perfect fit for me. It is my passion. I love to hunt. I love to write. It all goes together. I was at NRA for 8 years. Then I was freelance for 3 years. Wanted to get back to Pennsylvania. Loved NRA, but DC is a little crowded, as you may know. Indeed. So I wanted to sit back down in a state that I love. And I was freelancing for a variety of titles. One of them was Delta Waterfowl. And I was happy freelance, but I love Delta Waterfowl. And when an opportunity to go to work for them full time came up, I jumped on it.
Okay, so were you born and raised in Pennsylvania?
I was, yeah. Born and raised, lived almost all of my life right here in central Pennsylvania. I'm now right outside of State College.
Yeah, that's awesome. So talk a little bit about sort of your role there with Delta as the managing editor, and does that sort of live exclusively within the magazine, or do you also get into some of the web and social media and the other things that sort of go into that?
Sure. Yeah, I'm the managing editor of the magazine. It's 5 issues a year, but I'm also heavily involved in our social media, in our marketing and public relations, writing press releases, writing for the web. If it's communications coming out of Delta Waterfowl, then I have a hand in it.
So I got to ask you, in the spring of 2019 issue here, there's an article written by Brad Heidel. And as the editor of the magazine, did at any point you question the cover photo that was chosen for that article, because it just so happens to have me sort of featured on that photo? So I'm curious how that slipped through the cracks. And I mean, I guess, the guys at Rock House took the picture. So, I mean, I do have that going for me. But other than that, I was definitely surprised to open the magazine and see myself on there. I thought that was pretty cool.
I thought that particularly ugly guy looked familiar. But sometimes you get the photo package in and you have to work with what you got. But
fair enough. Fair enough.
Rock House provided some great photos for that. It came together nicely. And despite your mug, as I jest.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So how, I know that Delta, the headquarters, there aren't many people. How many writers do you have, and are they located all over the United States, or are there just a few that travel?
Gosh, how many writers do we have? We have 4 full-time columnists that write our Duck Dogs column, Strategies, Camp Chef, Traditions. But in-house, there are 3 of us that are full-time writers, and then we have a larger communications and marketing staff behind us, supporting us.
I think one of the things that probably a lot of guys listening to this show think about is, the opportunity to do freelance work in the outdoor industry, in the outdoor space. And I think for many, it's probably a very daunting task, whether they want to write or they want to do photos or whatever it is. Talk a little bit about your experience as a freelance guy, and maybe how many people do you see, coming to Delta looking for freelance opportunity, and, for people that might be trying to pursue that, do you have any tips or anything that might help them kind of stick out?
Absolutely. Your foot in the door as a freelance writer is the hardest part. But once you're in, you're in. Everyone thinks of the freelance market as being very crowded, but really there's only so many folks who can hit a deadline and do it in quality fashion. And we're still looking for those guys and gals, and there's still room for them. My path to it, I started at American Hunter. I established contacts, and when I left, I had plenty of work right away. So my advice, if possible, to someone is to start full time with a regional public, even if it's a regional or a small publication. Get some bylines and get yourself established in the industry, and then you can move on to freelance. If that's not an option for you, write a manuscript, send it to me. Don't just send me queries. Show me that you can do the job. And once that first editor takes one of your photos or something you've written, others come calling after that. I've seen it many times in our industry. And certainly there's an advantage for that recent college grad. We're looking for younger writers to contribute to our book, and that's true across the board. So if that's you, I would be hopeful, because you can break in if you work hard and you're willing to put in the time.
So is there a reason that you're looking for younger hunters? Is it the freedom that they might have to go out and get the stories, or is there something different behind that?
Well, there's not a lot of folks in that say 25 to 30-year-old range that are out there freelancing. So I see that as an advantage if you're in that age bracket. If you can do quality work, people are looking to appeal to that age demographic, and it takes a writer that they can relate to.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking when you mentioned that. Is what better way to recruit that millennial type hunter or millennial type person that could be a future hunter than have someone of their age demographic that could perhaps take an article or approach a topic in a different manner than someone that would be that's been in their 40s or 50s, for as an example. I think that's a fantastic way to be able to relate to that market, and frankly the pipeline that needs to be continued filled to maintain the number of hunters and the growth and the objectives that Delta and other organizations want to do. I mean, we need hunters buying licenses and having interest in these programs and things. So I think that makes a ton of sense. And I do believe just by the interaction that we receive on social media, there are people out there. I think what you said kind of nailed it on the head. I get this sense though that a lot of people make assumptions that the market's saturated and that you just get like inundated with things on a daily basis. But to your point, I think it makes absolute sense is instead of sending you an email about, hey, are you looking for freelance writers? It's like, hey, here's some of my work, like check it out. And if it's legit, that's going to go a lot better than, just writing a well-crafted email saying like, hey, are you accepting freelance submissions or whatever?
Exactly. And we do get a lot of that. Hey, you looking for a freelance writer? Sure. Send me an example of your work, or send me a published work, or send me a manuscript. And it's sometimes people don't want to put together something when payment is not guaranteed, but you need to do the work and show an editor that you have what it takes. And you can learn, it's not just you send a manuscript and you get a yes or no. You can learn from that experience, and the editor can provide you with a critique of your work, and you can adjust and grow. And maybe at the end you end up with something that can be published.
Man, I have so many questions about just your. Why are you laughing?
No reason.
Just pretty much like just a day in your shoes. You know, you're going over the magazine and social and everything, but then on the other side, you still get to hunt and make those stories come to life. So take us through a day or a week of what you do.
I think it depends which day, as far as the one you'd want to live vicariously through. Some are not so glamorous when it's 10 o'clock on a Friday night and I'm still typing away at my desk. But certainly to your point, one of the biggest perks of the job is I've had the opportunity to travel and hunt some amazing places, meet some amazing people. And I've been very blessed in that regard. And then to come back and have the opportunity to relive that experience by writing about it. And in doing so, hope that someone out there will relate to the words that you've put to paper, who will be able to experience the hunt through those words. It's a real joy.
Yeah, it's awesome that you get to, have a job that gives you flexibility to live where you want and work with things that you're passionate about and all that kind of stuff. I think that's just an awesome, an awesome thing that can motivate somebody out there that, I recently, as I'm scrolling Instagram or Twitter or whatever social platform, someone had posted it, if you look forward or celebrate Friday so much, you need to evaluate what you're doing Monday through Thursday. And I'm like, man, that sort of resonates. So, I think a lot of guys feel that, if they could find something that they're passionate about and offer all these things, it would increase quality of life, even though there are days when it's, hard still. I'm sure you have no regrets about, getting to the position you're at, with all the things that you get to be involved with and, centered around things that you're so passionate about.
I could kiss my guidance counselor. Yeah. I would be thinking about ducks every day, whether I was in this role with Delta Waterfowl or not. So it's it's a perfect fit for me. Writing's my passion, ducks are my passion, and they've come together in this position.
So I have to ask, when you're out hunting, do you have a notepad and are you taking notes or thoughts, like jotting them down in between volleys or anything like that?
Often I am taking notes with my camera during the hunt. That's one aspect of the trips I go on. I'm working hard while I'm hunting. I mean, it's great. I'm in a duck blind. I'm hunting ducks. But I'm also taking 500 to 1,000 photos a day. I'll take some actual formal notes when we get back to camp. But yeah, that's one of the biggest aspects of my role when I'm on assignment is I have to document everything. You can't take a photo after you're home, so I work hard to ensure I come back with an angle and photos. But if I'm hunting by myself in Pennsylvania, no, it's at some point it can't be a job. And there's days when the only camera I'll have with me is my cell phone because I try to. That's me time when I'm out there with my dog and I've set the decoys, I've done the scouting. That's fun. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about that actually, because we got to talking beforehand before we started this interview. But before today, I didn't know that you were an athlete at Penn State on the track team, and I didn't know that we were there at the same time. I was a baseball player, so we likely crossed paths at some point and didn't realize it. And then after we got to yakking here, come to find out we have some shared friends and things like that. So I do remember an article that you'd written a while back about, and it was highlighting, guys at Penn State that were hunting ducks as students. And admittedly, when I was in college, like at that time, I really wasn't that big into duck hunting, and I didn't duck hunt at all when I was in college. As a matter of fact, I didn't hunt a ton, hardly at all in college anyway, because of just time constraints. But most people don't think of Central Pennsylvania, the State College area, as a duck hunter's paradise. You refer to that area and people immediately think fly fishing. That's kind of the biggest well-known draw to the area. But talk a little bit about hunting in that area, Did you get to do much of it in college, and sort of just, what kind of scenarios are you doing in hunting, and, just a little bit about that in the area there.
How many secrets do I want to reveal here?
Oh yeah. Don't give up any. I mean, just high level stuff here.
Yeah. Those trout streams you mentioned, they become pretty good waterfowl flyways after the freeze.
Yeah.
That's where I'm doing a lot of my hunting, is on all those public land creeks that we are really blessed to have. And there'll be a little crowded on opening day, but I tell you, when it gets good, mid December and later, sometimes I'm the only truck that I see that's hunting these, and I'm killing ducks on them. And the other thing that makes it so exciting to hunt these small creeks, to me, it's poor man's Arkansas. They're generally lined in hardwoods, so the ducks have to circle and work down through them, and they come right down through the timber, almost like you're down south. It's just, it is. I've hunted some very nice places, but there is something special to me in my heart, and maybe it's because I'm from here, but I love Penn's Woods in the fall when the leaves change and the ducks start flying. It is my favorite place to hunt. Sometimes I start worrying that my travel is going to interfere with hunting here in Pennsylvania, which might blow somebody in the Central Flyways mind. But that's how I feel. And it's a perspective thing too. If I come out with a greenhead in each hand, or maybe I've got a mallard and a black duck, I am as thrilled as if I just shot 8 ducks on the Canadian prairie. That's just how I'm wired.
Well, I think if you come out with 2 greenheads this year, it's going to be your limit. So, so you're going to have to be thrilled with that, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, kind of going back to your job and, saying that you don't want to miss time at home. Do you, when you're looking forward to what you're going to write, do you set out stories ahead of time, like a couple months ahead of time, or do you go on these hunts and the creative juices just start flowing and you work that way?
Yeah, I always find it funny when I arrive in camp and somebody asks me what my angle is. When the hunt hasn't happened yet, I don't know what my angle is. I'm typically looking for what my story might be while I'm there, but it's when I get home and I reflect on the experience and look at some of my notes when it really all tends to come together. And from there, we plan our editorial calendar a year in advance. These are every magazine you receive from Delta Waterfowl is well planned. A lot of thought goes into them, and we like to think that we've been executing pretty well.
Yeah, no, totally agree with that. And I wanted to talk about an article that I'm not exactly sure. I want to say that you wrote this, but forgive me if you didn't. But it was actually one of the things that was very instrumental in me actually getting into duck hunting, because I had moved down to the DC area after college. And when I moved here, I was still archery, whitetail, and turkey hunting. I mean, that was kind of like the 2 big things that I was into. And no one in my family duck hunted, so I wasn't exposed to it early on. But when I got down here, I was just looking for ways to extend the season, things that I could do outside in the outdoors. And I remember reading an article, and I want to say it was in American Hunter, where the article essentially centered around 2 guys who were whitetail hunters originally, started duck hunting, and then whitetail hunting basically became what they did between the splits to kind of like fill the time to get back out in the duck blind. I was like, man, maybe I should try that out, And the first hunt I got to go on was up on the Maryland Eastern Shore. And basically after that, I was hooked, and I started hunting, the Potomac River down here, and it's kind of all snowballed into what I am as a waterfowl hunter today. But talk a little bit about your experience here in DC and sort of kind of the hunting opportunities that are available, so close to the nation's capital.
Absolutely. First, 100%, I wrote that piece.
I was going to say, I thought you did, but I wasn't 100% confident.
To learn that someone got into duck hunting because of that, and it's you, that is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny. I left the DC area, happily drove back to Pennsylvania from a county of 1 million people. I was in Fairfax. And the really the only thing that I miss is the quality of the duck hunting, which is crazy to think of DC duck hunting.
Right.
But I loved hunting the Potomac River. There's a lot of public lotteries that can lead to some pretty good opportunities, particularly if you like to hunt divers. The bluebill hunting is about as good when the weather is on as I've found anywhere in the country.
Yep.
And it was something that, despite having to live in the city for my job, that I looked forward to it every week with when I would draw. We had some good days.
Yeah, it's well, sorry, Dan, not to cut you off, but I do find it funny that, you know, on a regular basis, you know, we as Atlantic flyway hunters, and particularly, you know, from my perspective here, you know, like you said, some of the diver hunting that we get when the weather's right is just downright fantastic. And, you know, you see so many people from around all these fantastic flyways across the country that are just like, oh, I'm still searching for that canvas back, or I'm still, searching for that, you know, black duck or whatever it is that we kind of take for granted here. And then you realize, you know, man, there's been some really banger hunts we've had here that, you know, a lot of people, you know, don't get to experience, in other flyways. And it's like, you know, this is 30 miles or less from the nation's capital. It's pretty wild to think about that. And it's just it's a cool little nuance and niche that, it's not easy to come here and get into waterfowl hunting. I mean, this has got to be one of the hardest places because of the limited access to public ground. But if you can figure it out, I mean, there's definitely great hunting to be had.
There really is. And you just reminded me the first time that I found this opportunity. I'm set up in a public blind. There's, I don't know how many millions of dollars the home behind my blind on the back was worth, but it just felt illegal. I had to glance at my blind pass to remind me that, nope, I'm good to go. But yep. we had these 5 geese swing in, and two buddies and I rose up and we dropped them, and my dog goes out and he's grabbing one, and the goose is crippled up a little bit, so it's trying to give my dog the business. And I grabbed the goose and I did what you do. I dispatched it and glanced over my shoulder, and there's bird watchers on shore.
Oh my god!
Yep, that definitely happens.
I was wondering, did you have a boat while you were down there? I know, Josh utilizes a canoe to get out to those blinds. How did you go about that?
Yeah, that's really the biggest barrier to entry. Is a lot of those blinds in various opportunities in Virginia and Maryland require a boat. There's no way to walk to them. And I had one buddy with a John boat and another buddy with a canoe, and I brought the food, and somehow we considered that equal.
Make it work. Yeah, it definitely opens up, a lot of opportunity. And it's one thing that, when we've got to hunt a little bit more, around the country and with different folks. And, I always get a kick out of talking to people about the different styles of hunting that they do. And, if I'm hunting in Northern Virginia, 95% of my hunts, whether it's ducks or geese, I'm in waders. We're hunting water holes a lot. And, you talk to people that spend 95% of their season in dry fields, and it's just always interesting to me to hear the different, scenarios or whatever. But, there's just not a lot of fields to hunt around here. We do hunt some, but even the fields we end up hunting like sort of midday loafing ponds. That kind of seems to be the most consistent thing to get on, big groups. So, we spend like 95% of the time in waders and trying to figure out different ways of getting across water through sneak boats, or we did some layout hunting and some long lines off of bigger boats and things like that. So we pretty much try it all. But the more that we can experiment, the more places we seem to kind of unlock, and the more success we seem to have.
Yeah, absolutely. My style's evolved not just with where I'm at, but the stage of my life I'm at. Right now with 2 young kids, and I work quite a few hours. I'm doing a lot of running and gunning. I'm, a small spread. I'm going to set up with natural cover. I'm not going to bother with a blind as much with all these small creeks. And it's actually been fun. It's been refreshing to just go in with minimal gear and set up for a couple hours, shoot a few ducks before work, and it doesn't take 3 hours to pick up the decoys, and I'm out.
that's been my cup of tea around home lately, anyways. A small spread, go out to the local lake, and I was live in our group the one morning, and everyone's like, "Man, I can't believe you're out there." I'm sitting at work already, and I ended up shooting a banded mallard and kind of danced around a little bit. It was fun, but those are definitely. I think I had I showed up and the edge of the lake was iced over, which I was not expecting. So I broke a little hole. I think I had five floaters and one spinner, and I ended up killing 3 ducks. And I mean, it was a great morning. So I definitely get that. And I'm wondering, I'm sitting here thinking and trying to envision, I worked in State College a bit, and Bellefonte was one of the main areas, but you drive down through and there's a park downtown kind of, and there's always a ton of birds there. But as I'm trying to envision kind of where you're hunting at, what kind of gun are you shooting? And I'm just thinking, is he an over and under kind of guy? You kind of are putting that vibe out a little bit, but I'm just wondering what you're shooting down there.
I love an over under. If I'm hunting upland birds, it's over under all the way, and I keep being tempted to move into one for ducks. But no, I'm going to stick with my Benelli for now.
There you go.
Yeah. Kyle, I'm curious, one of the hot topics for at least us locally here is the Sunday hunting deal. And, Pennsylvania is still one of the few states that does not allow at least some level of Sunday hunting. And there is legislation kind of making its way through again this season to perhaps bring that to a reality. And, I'm curious to get your perspective on that, because as a kid growing up in Pennsylvania myself, hunting on Sundays was just never a thing. So it never really bothered me one way or the other, because I just didn't know any different. Shortly after I moved to Virginia, Sunday hunting was, I shouldn't say shortly after, but sometime after I moved to Virginia, Sunday hunting was legalized here, and it's created a ton of opportunities for me personally to get out in the field, because like you, I've got young kids, and Saturdays for me are typically at sporting events or something like that. And particularly why I'm sensitive to Sunday hunting is I've gotten to take, my son just turned 8 this spring, and I've gotten to take him out on a couple hunts this year, this past season for the first time. And if it wasn't for Sunday opportunities, him and I would have not had that chance, because I'm working Monday through Friday. And then on Saturdays, we're either at a baseball game or at a soccer game or something like that. So we just don't have the opportunities to do it without those Sunday days being open. And, for as much as we need, retention and recruitment of new youth hunters, it seems like that would be a great opportunity, but yet you see a lot of people against it because they're worried about the shortening of the season and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm curious to what where you weigh in on that topic.
I absolutely support Sunday hunting 100%, as does Delta Waterfowl. It's absolutely limiting opportunities, not just for youth, but for adult hunters who have full-time jobs, right, and kids who have activities on Saturdays. And I do think that it is impacting hunter recruitment in the very few states who still ban Sunday hunting. It's funny that we're even having this battle. When I hunt in the South and I tell folks that I can't hunt on Sundays, it just blows their mind. They can't believe that that's even a thing. But here we are faced with it. I do think it's a battle that the pro Sunday hunting forces will win. We keep getting closer and closer, and with the young kids that I have growing up, I'm certainly hopeful that they have that opportunity to hunt on Sunday, should they have opportunities on Saturday, or should they have activities on Saturday.
Yeah, no, there's been a couple times, in the fall, my kids are like, "Dad, I want to go hunting with you. I want to go hunting with you." And they're still this past fall they were 4 and 3. So I'm like, "Yeah, let's go, and we'll go deer hunting. We'll go sit in a blind. It's Sunday, it's sunny, and it always seems like Saturday for archery hunters is raining up here anyways, but the Sundays are clear, and we'll go sit in a blind on Sunday and just watch around." But I'm just thinking, man, in a couple years, it'd be so nice to be able to get out and take them on Sundays. So I'm definitely a proponent as far as that goes as well.
Guess that was a question, Dan, or no?
No, not my,
just a profound statement.
No. Well, I'm just thinking, man. I mean, it's true, and as far as you have like you said, soccer, and it gets into basketball season, then the Sundays, it's like, all right, man, I could have spent this morning out in the woods or, doing whatever. And, now you're lucky enough to have it down there. And, as these coming years are coming quicker and quicker, it seems that, it's just something that we would like to be able to take advantage of.
Yeah. And I mean, if you think about it too, and to Kyle's point about adults. So if you work full time and, states want to increase costs of licenses and things like that and continue to generate revenue, people start to weigh it. And now you compound that with, as an Atlantic Flyway guy, if you live in Maryland, for example, you can do all that and you can shoot one bird, or you can shoot two mallards, one honker, whatever it is. It's just things that are making it harder and harder for people to get excited if you're not tore up with it, right? If you're not guys like us that we're going to go hunt no matter what the limit is and no matter what it costs, we're going to make it, that's going to be part of who we are. But I don't think that's who we're talking about here in totality. We're talking about those fringe people because they still buy licenses and, they still influence others and may introduce somebody new to the field and things like that. So I do think it is something that can have a profound impact. And I feel like, I'm sure the people that are against it have valid reasons, at least in their mind, but I feel like ultimately it's a short-sightedness that, ultimately there is much more positive that can come from it than negative. I mean,
yeah, no question. There's a variety of strategies that are being employed and research being conducted on recruitment, reactivation, and retention of hunters, and it's very clear that Sunday hunting bans are hurting all three of those. It's not just recruiting new hunters. We've got to retain hunters. There's folks that are walking away from the sport who, in Sunday hunting states, they work full time and maybe they get to hunt Saturday. I mean, if that's what you're faced with, unless you have an absolute passion for it, it's pretty hard to stick with it. And to your previous point, you're right. There is this mysterious kind of fringe group of folks that enter and exit the duck hunting world, and nobody really knows why. But that's what the statistics are showing us. So I think you hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah, it's one that I think it's one that it's just, again, I always come back to, I can't believe we're having this conversation. That there's just a day that they pick out of the week that you can't hunt. It just seems strange to me. I've always been like, pick Wednesday. If you want to pick a day, give us Sunday, take away Wednesday, whatever. But let's shift gears a little bit here. I want to talk about something that, so I feel like a lot of the stuff that I see you post on social, on your personal stuff, has to do around with your dog. And you've written several articles, including your most recent piece, focused around your dog. And I do believe in your piece, I don't have it right in front of me, but I do believe that, it quotes the numbers of Delta members who have dogs and what percentage of them are labs. And I want to say it's like 70% of a larger number have Labrador retrievers as their chosen duck dog. And yet, for you, the choice is English Springer Spaniels. So I'm curious as to sort of how you got into that lane with dogs. And I think we'll probably have several questions around dogs. So maybe I'll just stop right there and sort of start with that.
Sure. Yeah, you've probably heard my dogs. They are, after business hours, if I don't start paying attention to them, they get their feelings hurt a little bit. So they're starting to pace a little bit. But I grew up with Springer Spaniels. My dad got his first in 1980, and I was born in 81. And we had other dogs too. We had a Lab, a Gordon Setter, an Irish Setter, but Springer Spaniels were my first love. They're still my breed of choice. Part of that is I love to compete in English Springer Spaniel field trials. Now those are upland affairs, so I'm training on some pretty advanced upland work on pheasants. But I do hunt ducks with my Springers, and they do a really nice job. They're to me, their biggest disadvantage is they have that singular coat. So when the temperature starts to really drop, I have to be careful because their skin can get wet. And if it's really cold, that can be dangerous. But if they're in a dry field, they're good to go no matter how cold it is. But the other thing that you have to look at, so your season length is 60, 90 days. And the rest of your year, your dog's not hunting, you're not hunting. you want to pick a breed that really fits your personality, and these happy little springers will suit me just fine.
I want to go back. You said that you really enjoy hunting down there when it starts getting cold, and you mentioned the single coat and their temperature differential there. But how have you seen any adverse effects of when they get super cold? Have you had to call any hunts after they retrieved a duck or two, or I can tell that you keep a close eye on it, but I'm just wondering if you've had any instances where you really had to watch that.
I haven't. I take a few preventative measures. They wear a vest. I think that's a pretty universal thing these days. I also, my wife doesn't like this, but past the end of July, I don't bathe them because I want that nice oily coat to build up. And I'm just careful. It's not just, is the water cold? It's how long are they going to be exposed in that water? Are they going to be on these long swims, or is it going to be a couple quick retrieves? I keep a towel with me, and I towel them off real quick, and to try to keep that from really saturating them and getting to the skin. And if it's in the low 20s, below 20, and they're going to be getting wet, it's an environment where I know if they retrieve a duck, they're going to be just soaked. I'm not gonna risk it. I'm not gonna hunt them. I have other buddies with dogs who I can go hunt with, because I just simply don't like hunting without a dog for a variety of reasons. But that's their fallback. I don't try to argue that the Springer is a superior duck dog, particularly in cold water, to a retriever. I mean, to me, that's the retriever's game. That's what it was bred to do. It is a duck dog. If we want to talk about pheasants, man, my dogs will slash that switchgrass. That to me, a Springer is a pheasant dog that can also hunt ducks on a pretty considerably high level.
Yeah, definitely versatile breed, and I think is also another option that fits nicely in those those non-hunt periods where you're looking for family dogs and things like that. Not that labs don't, obviously, but it is cool seeing other types of breeds in the field, getting after it and getting it done. So, and it actually segues nicely into my next question. So I have a golden retriever. He doesn't hunt. So like for me, I enjoy hunting with a dog. I just don't have one personally, so I don't do it as much as some. But what I've noticed, and this is based on absolutely nothing scientific more than just sort of my dumb brain kind of thinking, I seem to notice this more often. But on social media, in magazines, I'm seeing more content geared towards the retriever, the dog portion of the hunting, like in your article, how for, making it the complete package, sort of like, you become the duck hunter with the duck dog kind of piece to it. I'm curious as to, from your optic, has this always been sort of a thing that's just now getting more attention because there's platforms out there like social media to allow people to do that? Or has there been sort of a surge in people's interest in duck dogs and retrievers and the off-season training programs and all that kind of stuff? And I wonder this simply because certainly our show has gotten much closer with that sector of the field. We have a great relationship with Barton Ramsey, Southern Oak Kennels, and Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy. We've got a great relationship with the folks at Eukanuba. So we work closely with people that live in this space and earn their living here. So I'm wondering if I'm jaded by that, or if it's truly something that sort of is growing within the waterfowl market world, hunter sect. And is that something that you've noticed or not?
I do think within the last year, there does seem to be a greater buzz around duck dogs, and dogs have been my passion my whole life. But I think that you're correct. I'm seeing it on social media, and I think that's fueling some of it. But it seems like every duck hunter I know is out there buying a dog and asking me for tips on the early socialization and the start of the training program. Delta has seen an increase in corporate partnerships from folks on the dog side of the industry. Sport Dog, you mentioned Eukanuba is our official dog food corporate sponsor.
Yep.
I do think that that's the case. Now, why, I don't know, aside from the fact that it's darn fun to train a dog all year long. It really why my dad got into it is he thought, if I'm training this dog all year long, it's like I'm hunting all year long.
Yeah.
For me, it never really stops. I'm going to train this weekend on birds. I'm constantly, it's like there's no off season. I'm going to start up field trials in September, and then I'm going to hunt, and then field trials kick back off in March and run through May. So I'm just constantly all around it.
Yeah. And I think, that's part of it is what can I do that keeps me connected to something that I'm passionate about till the next time I get to go do it, for real. And training is one of those things. And I tell you, in our Facebook group, I swear especially this time of year, the questions and the comments that come in there that are related to dogs and dog training are like 2 to 1 to everything else. It used to be like, hey, what layout blind do I want? Or what's your opinion on these decoys and those kinds of things? But I feel like this thing has shifted pretty handily to, what kind of bumpers am I throwing? Or my dog's having this challenge and all of these kinds of things. And I find it very interesting. And, again, to my untrained, unscientific eye, it seems like it's an area of the waterfowl industry that is surging.
Yeah, I agree. And this is really June's a critical month for dog training. It's, to me, it's like the start of dog training season. That's one of the reasons that our summer issue is dog themed, why it's Duck Dog Month on our social media at Delta Waterfowl right now. And it's a pro trainer once said to me that champions are made in June. And I think it's a really good point. It's that some people aren't training in June, but those who are really kick their dogs in the high gear. And you know what? If you trained in June, you're not going to stop in July. You're going to go all year long. And whether your dog's a hunting dog or field trial dog or both, which mine are both, it's going to be in great shape headed into your year.
I want to circle back to your latest article a little bit, and a couple things, I guess, really stuck out. The one you mentioned, the guy that they use the dogs for hunting and really feeding their family as a necessity, and he was quoted as saying that he would get rid of one of his children before his dog, just for the plain fact that the dog is a hunter and feeds the rest of his family. And I'm like, whoa. Like when I read that, I was like, that's a very big statement. And then, some of the, I guess the chemicals that go through these dogs' bodies when they make eye contact with their owner. And maybe if you can, just talk about that a little bit, because it was really cool. And, to know that our dogs are feeling those feelings compared to like a wolf, like it mentions, won't make eye contact. And I don't know if that's because they don't want those personalized feelings or what it's about, but maybe just touch on those a little bit.
Yeah, that was one of the really fascinating things that a researcher at Duke University told me is when you make eye contact with your dog, both in you and your dog, oxytocin, which is a bonding hormone, is released, along with other hormones that give you both joy. And that's really unique to dogs. It doesn't happen in domestic wolves. It certainly doesn't happen in cats. That process, it normally happens between a mother and her baby. But the same thing happens when we look into our dog's eyes. We both grow closer. It's a fascinating thing. They have evolved to love us, and we've evolved to love them. It's a really unique relationship and bond.
So it is like man's best friend.
Yeah. The other really thing that I found just to be so cool is, if you've ever meant to say the name of one of your kids and you blurted out the name of your dog, I do it all the time. I'll go to say Jack and I'm like, Junior, Jack. The research suggests that dog names are stored in the family center of our brain, and that's why that occurs. And that is something that almost never occurs among cat owners. It's unique to dogs. So you can kind of draw your own conclusion there with what that suggests.
Yeah.
But I might offer that even cat owners don't love their cats.
I know this one doesn't. My wife might, but I don't. Dan, did you have something else about that article? Because I've got something else I want to ask, but it's not tied to that, so I don't want to jump ahead if you've got more that you want to to go with.
You can run with it. I just thought that those were really cool, and it makes sense because I don't know, I do love my dog, and you get that feeling and the sense of family, and you you say you never insult a man's dog, and it really is, it makes sense if that's stored in the family section of your brain. You feel like it's a personal and family insult, and people take that serious.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's no science to back it up, but I really think that the bond between a hunter and his hunting dog is as close as it gets. We all love our dogs that are pets, but I feel like when you go through the ups and downs of a season, and you're taking a carnivore out there, and when he retrieves a duck, you're both getting a reward, and you're going through that shared experience. To me, that is just something that's special.
Yeah, the funny thing about that comment right there is everybody listening to this show knows exactly what you mean. But if you said that to someone who's never duck hunted a day in their life, they'd probably be like, what are you talking? They wouldn't have any way to relate to that. It's just, it's something that's sort of sacred to the brotherhood of waterfowl hunters. It's like, it's sort of the same conversation where people are like, you wake up how early to do what and sit in what weather and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, that's the best time of the day. Like, I live for that, and they just don't get it.
Yeah. There's days when I have trouble getting out of bed, but man, when that alarm goes off at 4 a.m. and it's a duck hunting day, I'm like a flushed teal springing out of that sucker. I'm ready to roll.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So, we've had you for longer probably than I'm sure Dan said we would. But I've got one more question, and then I'll turn it over to Dan. But as this is kind of circling back to where we started with this, and as someone who's responsible for content and looking so far ahead, that's something that we also do, and we look at kind of where we want to go and how we're going to get there and all that kind of stuff. And talk about some of the challenges of that in a market that seems like, in an industry that seems like is changing all the time. You've got maybe more than, at least in my experience in the waterfowl industry, you've got companies sort of pushing the envelope of innovation and technologies and things like that to bring new and innovative equipment and gear to the market. And how do you stay ahead of that as a leader in the in the space, as as an organization that hunters look to for information and make buying decisions and things of that nature off of the content that you're putting out? So how does Delta, what's the approach to sort of keeping ahead of that and ensuring that, that message is, of a quality thing? Because I do, this is in no way meant to be a shot in any other organization, but I personally align most closely with Delta because I do truly feel it is a duck hunters organization. The efforts that they go through in Sunday hunting and things of that nature, are things that I value very closely. And, when I look through the pages of that magazine, I read the things about the reviews and the comments about different equipment, and I know there's a lot of others that do the same thing. So that's a long-winded way of asking, how do you guys make sure that you're staying ahead of all of that and ensuring that you're delivering the quality content that the readers of the magazine are looking for?
Sure. You broke up on me a little bit there at the end, but I think the crux of your question is how do we continue to evolve as an organization? And that's pretty simple. Delta Waterfowl was founded as a research organization, and we remain the world leader in waterfowl research. And what that research allows us to do is to continue to refine our programs based on that research. We're constantly changing with new findings, what we've learned, and all of those programs are designed to do two things: produce ducks and to secure the future of waterfowl hunting. And I think times may change, hunters' opinions may shift, but those are two things that we all value very much.
Yeah, for sure. No doubt.
I was going to say, going back to research, we, our local Delta that I'm a committee member on, got into the goose banding this morning. I unfortunately was on a road, so I couldn't go over and help out, but definitely fun to be a part of that and be involved in a hands-on effort. as far as Delta's concerned. So I really don't have too much more there, Josh. No more one more things, but
yeah, that's surprising. But I mean, we've covered a ton of information, and it's been fun having you on. And I thought it was interesting when we reached out to you about coming on the show. It was like, hey, I'm not a biologist, and I'm like, that's great, because I'd love to hear, just more of the, like the things that we talked about. And then as I got to looking into, to your background, we had much more in common than what I anticipated. So I'm glad that we got you on the show, and I've enjoyed the conversation. And it is funny because it absolutely was an article that you wrote that got me thinking, like, hey, maybe waterfowl hunting is something that I can do kind of in my to extend the season, because I was just like the guys you were writing about when I started. I was a whitetail hunter and a turkey hunter, and now when I'm in a deer stand, I'm literally thinking about how boring it is and how I can't wait to get back in the duck blind. So I've officially made that conversion. As painful as it was to mentally acknowledge for a long time, I think I've come to grips with I'm no longer a major deer guy. So I guess I should thank you for that to some extent.
Yeah, so give him a thank you for sure. Now, Kyle, do you have any trips lined up this year?
I have one hunt on the schedule. I'm going to be headed to Maine for the first time to hunt eiders.
Nice.
Dan holds Maine very, very close to his heart, because it was the coldest he's ever been in his entire life.
Dude, it was crazy. It was definitely, it was a struggle to get up there. We had that bomb cyclone hit, and I think I had 3 flights canceled and got up there late Friday night. I think we went to LL Bean, their flagship store up there, and got our licenses super late. I think we got back to the house at 1:30 or 2, and stayed up and chatted, and probably went to bed at 3. I think we woke up at 4 to drive over to the ocean, and at that point, when we got there, it was -26 when we woke up, -13 when we got to the ocean, paddled out in canoes with some of the guys from Old Town Canoes, and -13, and the wind was howling. It was just crazy. No emergency services. We had a warden watching us the entire time just for our safety, which was really cool. And got a eider that should be. I should be getting pretty close to coming home and going on the wall. So it's definitely fun. It's a very, very beautiful area, and I'm sure that you'll have a great time.
Yeah, I'm hoping for that nice white drake eider for the wall, but I can guarantee you I'm going to kill some lobsters.
Well, yeah, when we're up there, I was like, we stayed with Ryan Dubé, who's a listener of the show, and he's like, yeah, come stay at my house. And the dude is an awesome chef. So we had lobster and prime rib and some kind of mac and cheese. And it was, he laid it out, and I was like, dude, what'd you put out for these, these lobsters? And he's like, they're about $3 a piece during the season. I was like, what? And he's like, dude, we're right here. Yeah. He's like, until they start exporting overseas, and they get a little more expensive. But yeah, it was a great time, great food, and definitely something I'll never forget.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Kyle, thank you so much for giving us some time, man. We appreciate it, and we've enjoyed the conversation, and we look forward to maybe doing it again someday down the road. And until then, we'll definitely be keeping up with all your articles and all your stuff in the Delta magazine.
This was a real treat, guys. Thank you for the opportunity.
All right. Thanks again to Kyle for giving us some time and joining us on this week's show. And I certainly enjoyed that chat. And, like I said, a lot of some of the stuff that he's done, and one article in particular absolutely had bearing on me getting into the waterfowl space and kind of turning me into a duck hunter. So pretty cool to kind of chat with him about that. And, just a good episode all around, I think, this week.
Yeah, and there's something to say still about, getting the magazines and reading well thought out articles and the creativity that some of these guys have, and Kyle does really well getting points across. So, it's refreshing to read articles like that compared to, drumming through social media all day, and, it just kind of takes you back and gets you back in the field when you're hot. Like you said, it's 80 some degrees down there and sweating, and, just puts you back in the mindset of duck hunting and being out there.
Yep. I'm still a magazine mark. I read a ton of information on my phone and on my laptop, but I love waterfowl related magazines and catalogs and all that stuff. I subscribe to just about everyone that's made, I believe. So totally a big mark for that, and certainly enjoy the Delta publication as well. So, all right.
So
man.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
Are you going to submit any stories?
I would love to. I don't have a ton of time to do too much writing these days. I'm pretty busy with life.
I know you talked about it a little bit. You wanted to get into that side.
I do. I have written some things that I've sort of just written and stuck away here and never done anything with. But yeah, I don't see that. I don't see that being something that I can fit into the schedule right now. Although I would love to. It's just probably not in the cards for me in the short term. But maybe one day. There you
go.
All right, man. You got one last thing or anything else you want to hit here before we transition out this week?
No, man. It was a good chat, and that's all I have to say about that.
Cool. Well, I'll be coaching baseball this weekend, so enjoy your time camping. And
yeah, man. I got made a bunch of shish kebabs, ready to go,
nice.
Chilling out.
You smoking ribs?
I did smoke ribs for Father's Day.
I know
and, no surprise. But no,
one trick pony. Just one
going
trick.
up with some friends. One place I really love is Allegheny National Forest, and getting up there near Kinzoo, and that's kind of where we're heading this weekend. So it should be fun. And like I said, finally, it really has been. It's rained every day for I don't know how long, but it's been miserable, and it looks like we're getting a 3-day break, and it just happens to be on a weekend, which I didn't anticipate, and I'm very excited about. So
awesome. Well, enjoy it.
Yeah. Thank you, man.
And before we head out this week, do you want to take a minute just to thank Dunn Sporting Goods, Gunner Kennels, Eukanuba, and Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy. They're the world's most comprehensive online gun dog training resource. They've got over 160 instructional videos, include everything you need to take your 7-week-old puppy to a finished gun dog. Visit them over at cornerstonegundogacademy.com. Get signed up for that free preview module and begin your training journey today. Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy, the most advanced gun dog training resource on the web. All right, that does it for episode 140. Thank you to Kyle Wintersteen for joining us on the show and spending some time talking about ducks and dogs and all the good stuff that goes along with that. If you're new to the show, head over to iTunes, check out all the past episodes that we've got on there, and you can leave us a 5-star rating and review while you're there. We certainly appreciate it. It just helps other like-minded hunters just like you find our show. That's going to do it for this week. Till next time, for Dan, I'm Josh. Take care.